Eagle Communications is a leader in advertising. We can put your business in front of thousands of customers during the most watched shows, including local and national sports. Let our employee owners target customers with affordable advertising on over 40 popular TV networks and online with Facebook, Google, and YouTube. From crafting your message to video production, let our team help your business grow. Call today, 785-628-0467. Eagle Communications, our community connected.
I'm DJ Dan. I'm the Corporate Production Director for the Radio Division for Eagle Communications. I'm also the Operations Manager for the Manhattan property. I take care of the day-to-day operations in the Manhattan property. I also take care of all my production, take care of any scheduling, and any promotion or events. There's two things I really enjoy about my job. One is hearing our clients have success stories. The other is when I have a listener go absolutely ballistic because I've made their day. When I hear them and the excitement in their voice, that really keeps me coming back every day.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. We're in the studios of Eagle Community Television on Hall Street with producer and editor of our series, Brandon Cooley, and the professor of biological sciences at Fort Hays State University, Dr. Eric Gillock, who is joining us today for our Community Connection. Dr. Gillock was cited for a variety of classes he teaches as the 2016 Fall Outstanding Teacher Award winner. The presentation noted he'd been nominated several times for the Fort Hays State Pilot Award and frequently receives the Top Professor Award from Mortarboard at Fort Hays State University. Dr. Gillock, let's start with the areas of biological science itself, the areas that students can study in the department.
Okay, well, we have a wide variety of subjects and topics that people can study. We have all the field disciplines, ecology, wildlife biology. People can study reptiles, fish, birds, all that sort of thing from the broad scale. And we also have more of the molecular stuff, so things like anatomy and physiology, microbiology, immunology. So we cover the gamut of the biological sciences, all the way from the global scale all the way down to the microscopic scale. So
in other words, you've covered the field, haven't you?
We can do pretty much all of it for biology, yes.
That translates to what kind of career possibilities for students, Dr. Gillock?
Well, we've had a number of students go into many different areas. We've had students in the wildlife and the ecological studies. They've gone into state agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife or Forest Service. A lot of them go into wildlife biology, those types of things. We've had students go into graduate programs to get their masters and Ph.D.s in biomedical research, people looking at antibiotic resistance and things like that. We have a number of students that go on to professional schools, medical school, dental school, optometry, physical therapy, those types of careers too. So anything to do with biology, we have people that have gone into those areas. So.
Gosh, it sounds like, Dr. Gillock, that regardless of what area a student's interest is, and even whether they may change that area of interest when they're in classes at Fort Hays State, there's an opportunity out there for them.
Yeah, that's kind of our approach, and you know, we've had people that, you know, they think they want to, you know, become a cardiologist, and they take a class. You know, I'm really interested in reptiles after all. I think this is really interesting. I never knew that plants are so interesting. So yeah, we have a lot of kind of a buffet that people can, you know, try from. So yeah.
Tell me about your area now of instruction in the classroom. Do you cover kind of the specifics, the generalities of biology and the sciences, or are you on a specific track?
Okay. Most of my specialty classes deal with microbiology, immunology, pathogenic microbiology, those types of things. But I do also teach the non-majors human biology, which is an intro level course for people that need a science course. You know, we know that they don't want to be scientists or biologists, but so we give them an introduction. You know, so I'm kind of in both areas. So
Kind of, you can give young people a kind of a base knowledge of biology.
Yeah, that's my goal in the particularly in the non-majors class. My main goal is to, you know, have somebody who's a well-rounded citizen. They can pick up a newspaper someday and, you know, read an article about stem cells or read an article about, you know, any kind of biomedical thing, and they think, okay, yeah, I get that. I remember something about that a few years ago. So that's kind of my goal with them.
And then with the specific areas that you focus on, a lot of exciting things happening there in that field.
Yeah, we have people that, you know, there's a lot of topics in the news with, you know, Ebola and some of these types of things, these outbreaks. So people are interested in that. So we get to talk about that. Now, obviously, we don't do research on that, but we can talk about it and talk about, okay, this is what's going on. Here's why that's important, and here's what you need to know to kind of understand what's happening. So.
Well, and we hear topics, you know, dealing with MRSA, West Nile virus, those type of things that are in the news constantly and affect us directly in some instances.
Absolutely. So we want people to be aware of that, and some people they want to go into a career dealing with that. They want to try to contribute to solving those problems and you know, trying to make the world better by.
Well, and at the same time, Dr. Gillock, we're hearing about new treatments for cancers and things like that, where the body itself, the mechanisms of the body are used as opposed to some of the chemotherapies.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We talk about that in my immunology course, and I tell the students, you know, when you get cancer, it's a failure of the immune system somehow. So one thing that immunologists are looking at is, as you mentioned, how can we make the immune system stronger rather than giving somebody a bunch of toxic chemicals? Let's let their own body fight this off in a more of a natural, maybe enhanced way. So yeah, absolutely, a lot of interesting stuff.
How's your approach in engaging students, Dr. Gillock? You'll have students coming in to your classes for specific interests. I want to be a biologist. I want to do this in one of the biological sciences, whether it's outdoors or whether it's you know, in the medical field or such. And then you have students who come in, as you say, that want a general knowledge of biology. So how do you approach that? You've got two different spectrums they have to work with here.
Yeah, I think my main approach is to, like in the classroom, to I try to foster a kind of an open atmosphere, you know, free exchange of ideas and concepts, and I try to get them to talk. They're not always interested in talking, but I try to get them to, you know, communicate back and forth and just kind of get them to know that, okay, you can do this. There are many pathways you can follow, and different courses you can take, and just try to get them to realize that, hey, you know, I could do this if I wanted to. It's not, you know, it sounds daunting at first, but it's doable, and you know, we all started off not knowing anything, so I try to, you know, impart that to them, that, you know, you can do this. I was where you are now a few years ago, so it's possible.
That's very insightful that all of us started out not knowing anything.
Absolutely.
And it's people like Dr. Gillock who increase our knowledge in whatever aspects we pursue.
We try to.
That's a beautiful approach, Dr. Gillock. So you have, over the years, 16 years now, you're on your 17th year at Fort Hays State.
Yes, correct.
You have engaged many different learning techniques for students. Different classes come in every year, different makeups, different backgrounds, and so forth. And you winnow those techniques of teaching. How do you do it? What do you do? What do you look at? Give us some insights.
Well, when I first started, I was fresh out of a postdoc, a research program, And I knew that I was going to be teaching juniors and seniors in immunology, and I thought, okay, these students are going to be the best and the brightest and the cream of the crop. So I pitched it pretty high, and I realized that, you know, I didn't need to do that. So I started looking at their responses and try to look at the faces and see, am I getting through? Is there something that's not clear? So that's kind of what I do. I try to bring in like real world applications, trying to relate it to things that maybe they've experienced, you know, and just try to look at faces and see, you know, is this getting through? Sometimes you can tell. There are certain students you know, as you're lecturing, you look at and somebody's like, you know, yeah, okay, I get this, and then there are other people with fogged over, you know, eyeballs that you think, okay, something's not getting through somewhere. So,
and good teachers can read that, Dr. Gillock.
Well, that's kind of been my approach. It's something that I had to pick up. You know, something that I've learned over the years. But so yeah, that's been my approach. I don't really have any secret recipe, but I just try to see if people are understanding, and that's, I always tell them that, you know, there are no stupid questions. You know, please feel free to ask whatever you want. You know, don't be embarrassed. Or if you don't want to ask me, you know, come up after class or ask me in my office. Chances are there's somebody else in the class who's also wondering the same thing, and it's my job to make that more clear. So that's part of my philosophy of having a free exchange of ideas and comments. I don't make fun of somebody if they give an answer that, you know, is a little out there. And sometimes people, if you let them think about things, sometimes they come up with some really interesting ideas. Sometimes people ask me in class, well, what about this? Is it possible to do this? And a lot of times, like, wow, that's a really great idea. I don't know. That may be what the approach will be 10 years from now. I'll have to find out. So
the free exchange of ideas among students as well as the professor involved can really advance the learning.
Yeah, that's been my approach. Others have different ways of doing things, but for me that's worked. I try to get to know who people's names are and things like that, and try to encourage them to ask things. So
somebody who's not afraid of being challenged in a professor's role, I think, is probably pretty comfortable in their presentation.
Well, I remember, I try to put myself in their place too. I remember what it was like to be 19 and 20, and, you know, somebody's yelling at you, "Oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How could you say something like that?" And you know, like, wow,
that shut you down immediately.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It made you, even if you had a good idea, you were afraid to, you know, ask, because you think, well, maybe that's really stupid and I'm going to get yelled at again. So I didn't like that as a student, so I try not to do that.
Does that interaction improve throughout the semester as the students become more comfortable in relating to each other, as well as expressing views that, while they might not be completely accurate, are at least not derided?
Yeah, I think so. I think people begin to loosen up as the semester goes on, and they, you know, realize that, okay, yeah, I can ask something. Or, you know, some people are just naturally shy; they don't want to speak out. And I've had, you know, people come by my office and say, you know, hey, I was reading this material last night and I had an idea. Is this possible? So yeah, that tends to increase throughout the semester for the most part. So,
are you finding more women interested in the biological sciences, Dr. Gillock?
We are, and some of them are very, very sharp, very qualified. There are a lot of very capable women scientists out there, and, you know, I try to encourage young women, you know, go into science. Some of the best scientists I've met have been women, and yeah, we do see that, and I think once they realize that, you know, hey, I can do this. It's, you know, science isn't for boys. You know, everybody can do this. Yeah, I think they feel more confident. I've had some really good graduate students who have been female, and they've gone on to do great things.
Well, General Electric is running a big campaign to try to encourage female members of the population to engage in science. They have a goal of, I think, 20,000 or so to become involved, which will only further our scientific knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if somebody has a good idea, it doesn't really matter. In my opinion, anyway, it doesn't matter what gender they are. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. You know, if somebody can cure cancer, it doesn't matter if they're a male or female. You know, so I think that's great. I try to encourage them, and we are seeing more enrollments from the female population. So.
What about your background? What got you interested in the biological sciences area, Dr. Gillock?
Well, I was always as a kid, I was always kind of geeky, and I watched Star Trek all the time. And I had an uncle who was he's about 10 years older than I was, and he was in college. He was a chemistry major, so I would go kind of stay with him once in a while, and he would let me come in the lab and look around, and you know, it really just fascinated me that some of the things that you could do. And I thought, okay, I want to be involved with this. I like to try to figure things out and try to see how things work. And you know, he encouraged me a lot. So that's kind of where I probably got started.
Yours was a more indoor focused as opposed to the outdoors that sometimes the biology sciences incorporate.
Yeah, it was. I tended to be more interested in, you know, what's happening at the small scale. You know, I remember being a kid, and my mom told me that, you know, the reason we get sick is because there are little tiny things that you can't see that get inside you. And to me, that was just fascinating. I wanted to know more about that, so I found that very interesting.
You spent a lot of time around microscopes then, I'll bet.
Yeah, I have, yes. Yes.
Tell me about where you studied. Did you have, you mentioned an uncle, did you have other mentors or educators who influenced your?
I did. I'm from Hutchinson, Kansas, so I went my first year. I went to Hutchinson Community College, and I had a professor there, Dr. Pfister, who was it was an inspiration to me. He was just a really nice guy, really a laid-back guy, and you know, really unassuming, but. You know, he had a Ph.D. in chemistry, and he could have gone anywhere and worked in industry and made 10 times what he was making at the college. But he really enjoyed teaching. He really enjoyed interacting with students, and he was my advisor. So I would come into his office and bug him all the time, and so he was really helpful for that. And then. My graduate advisor, when I was working on my Ph.D., Dick Consigli was his name, and he was a really just a fantastic person. He knew lots of people. He was, you know, very bright. I could ask him anything, and he would say, "Well, yeah, there was a paper written back in 1967 about that," and I was just amazed that he could, you know, pull this information out, and he was just a very nice man too. He, you know, his lab was kind of like his family. You know, the junior people were kind of the kids, and then the more senior students were kind of the big brothers and sisters that would kind of look after the newbies. And I just really liked that environment. And he was just a very, very caring person.
And those individuals also, I'm assuming, probably welcomed the questions that you had, much as you do in your class.
They did. I learned a lot, particularly from Dr. Consigli. He was a major influence on me. You know, I could sit and talk to him about all kinds of things. You know, what was possible, and he was an interesting guy too. I mean, he had an interesting background. He was from Brooklyn, New York, and as a young man, he was recruited by the Brooklyn Dodgers to play baseball, and he was I think 17, and his father wouldn't sign the release for him, so he was upset about that, and so he said that, you know, he wanted to be a baseball player, and when he went to college, his advisor made him take biology, and he thought, oh, this is going to be terrible. I hate biology, and he really liked it, and went and got his master's, then went and got his Ph.D. And so he was a big inspiration to me.
Life-changing situation.
It was. You know, I just really lucked out to have him as an advisor.
And where was your work in Ph.D.?
This was at Kansas State in the Division of Biology. So he had been there since the 60s. He'd seen virology. He was a virologist, and that was my background. And he'd seen virology, you know, really expand over his career. So he had old school knowledge about how they used to do things back in the old days, and he was up on all the latest techniques as well, and wanted his students to succeed. So I think I took a lot from him.
Wow, what a wealth of information that was presented to you in that situation.
Yeah, he was a very good man.
What brought you to Fort Hays State? How'd you find the journey here?
Well, it was that was also kind of fortuitous as well. I was working as a postdoc researcher out of North Carolina State. My wife was getting her master's out there, and one of my classmates from graduate school had been working at Fort Hays. She was a professor in the department as well, in the biology department. Karen Hickman was her name, and you know, I thought, well, you know, I haven't talked to her for a while. Maybe I'll send her an email. So I sent her an email. Hey, how are things at Fort Hays? Are you liking your new position there? She'd been there maybe a year or two, and she said, oh yeah, it's really wonderful. And she said, hey, by the way, do you know of anybody who's looking for a microbiology job? Like, actually, I am, because my funding is about to run out in my lab. And so, yeah, I am. And I had gone to undergrad at Pittsburgh State in Pittsburgh, Kansas, and it was, you know, similar size. It had a similar feel, and so I applied to the position at Fort Hays. And when I came to campus, it was it was almost like coming home. I'd never been there before, but you know, it felt really very familiar. It was the same kind of atmosphere. Professors really got to know their students. Professors were teaching in the labs. You know, the campus, a beautiful campus. It was about the size that we were looking for. My wife also wanted to come back to Kansas. She's from Manhattan. So I was offered the position. I thought, yeah, this is actually what I've been looking for, something like this. So, and it's been a really good fit.
And is your wife involved in education as well?
She is. She's an instructor in the biology department as well. So she's an entomologist and studied insects. So I could ask her the bug questions if I have bug questions. And so, yeah.
Dinner time conversation must be interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, she's not afraid to get out in the dirt and play with the bugs with our boys. So they always like that. Hey, mom knows about bugs. Let's ask mom. So that was always
that's
fun.
A natural fit.
Oh
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. Boys like to dig in the dirt and look at
and
bugs, and so yeah, it was very popular.
And finally, the Outstanding Teacher Award. For you personally, Dr. Gillock, what's the meaning?
It really means a lot to me. It really did. The teaching part of my job is very important. In graduate school, I got into teaching as a TA, and I really liked it. And it was just very meaningful to be recognized. It's something I really like to do. So yeah, it really meant a lot to me to be recognized for being good at that. I mean, I felt like, okay, I think I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. But to have that recognition, it was really important.
Yeah, and something special from your peers can be very meaningful to at least acknowledge what you yourself are hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are very many fine teachers at Fort Hays, and to be recognized among that group, it was really special to me. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have just met one of many, as Dr. Gillock has said. Outstanding Teacher Award winner for the fall of 2016 at Fort Hays State University, Professor of Biological Sciences, Dr. Eric Gillock, our Community Connection.
Eagle Communications has partnered with local businesses to allow you to stay connected by watching our high-definition TV channels or surfing the web on our high-speed internet, all free of charge. Some of our partners include Chuck's, Gella's, Southwind CrossFit, The Wild Rose, Saki Toomey, Lewis Automotive Group, Precision Valley Golf, Toby Jugs, and the Army National Guard. Stop by and visit one of these hotspot locations today. It's all with your community partner, Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Don't miss the Green and Growing Show in the noon to 9 p.m. hours on Eagle TV. Ellis County Horticulture Agent Holly Dickman will identify common lawn and garden issues while providing up-to-date information. Watch weekdays in the noon to 9 p.m. hours on Channel 14 or 614. Green and Growing, brought to you by Riedel's Garden Center, a full-service garden center west of Hayes on Highway 40, and Eagle TV.